All right, welcome everyone. It's our Thursday night thriller horror stream. Welcome to Dread Alert. I'm Vince.
I'm Sarah.
If you're new here, we are producers, directors, actors with decades of experience. We have a deep love for the horror genre, and so we feel particularly suited to bring you horror content, horror news, horror reviews, and a little bit of what we've been watching as well with some commentary. Welcome to our live stream. If you haven't joined us before, this is a fun time. We do a little bit of news. We talk about what we've watched this week. Occasionally, we'll play a little bit of horror trivia as well. We got a lot on the menu for this evening. We have a lot of horror news that have just come out, and we're excited to share it with you. Sarah, what is typically on your radar for horror news this week?
Yeah, so there is a lot going on. I think that with spooky season upon us, we definitely get an influx of horror news at this time of year in particular. The first thing, and I think that we've done a piece of Terrifier news every single time we've done a live stream because we just keep getting more information. But we got new character posters that dropped.
Oh, we did?
We did.
That's exciting.
So there are 6 of them. So the first one is the final girl with Sienna on there. We have Jonathan as the survivor. We have Victoria as the witch.
I like that a lot.
And we have Art. They have 2 posters for Art. One as Jolly and the other as Demon.
Okay.
And then there's a final poster that has Art on it. It's Art's face, and it says, "Prepared to be terrified again."
I am more than prepared for this movie to come out. I've been looking forward to this movie since I pressed stop on Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
I'm just totally excited. I really love what Fuzz on the Lens is up to. I loved Stream as well. Stream was a great time.
It was so good. So I'm really excited. The other big piece of news is that it's actually premiering probably right now or very soon at Fantastic Fest. So people are getting to see this film. So if you do not want to be spoiled, there may be spoilers that start going around right now about Terrifier. So just hold tight if you don't want to be spoiled. Try and keep yourself away from certain avenues that you may find those spoilers, because some folks may want to spoil it for the rest of us.
I can't understand that. I mean, while it does feel cool to be like, hey, I saw this first, you don't have to spoil it. You can still get all the street cred of seeing this first without spoiling it for everyone else. I expect there to be at least a partial lore drop in this movie.
Yeah.
I expect us to get more information about Victoria, or not Victoria, about Sienna. I expect us to get more information about her father, and I expect us to get more information about Art, what brought him back and what's keeping him around, and I guess what brought him back again, because it does seem like he is literally back again in this film.
Yep, it seems like he is. So it'll be really interesting. The popcorn buckets also dropped yesterday.
The popcorn buckets look cool.
They are $35. I don't think that we had a price on them whenever we talked about it last week. They are still available for pre-order.
I can't believe that.
So it's because they haven't actually made them yet. I think that they're like taking how many they are getting. I think I saw that it's either AMC or Cinemark. I've looked on both sites and I can't remember which one. They're not shipping out until February.
Yeah, that's the big thing about the popcorn bucket. If you're interested in it, don't get your hopes up to bring it to the theater with you in October. This happened, it was a last-minute addition to the merch line for Terrifier 3, and unfortunately will not be ready for the actual film.
Right.
Is this where we start our popcorn bucket collection? Do we start here?
I don't know. It's a good one, though. It's a very good one. I mean, I feel like if we're going to do that, then we have to go to Cinemark and get the Chucky one.
I know. Honestly, we're wearing lavalier mics because we can't soundproof this studio. It is covered in horror memorabilia, horror art, and some personal art as well. But I'd really like to start covering with Art the Clown, popcorn buckets. I feel like that's such an investment, though. I feel like I'd have to put shelving in because Chucky, Pennywise even. I have a lack of Pennywise representation in the Nerd Nook, in the studio in general. We have a couple of NECA Ultimates, but those are classic Tim Curry Pennywise. Those are not Bill Skarsgård Pennywise. If you're just joining us, Bill Skarsgård is my personal preference for describing Bill Skarsgård because he's been in some of my favorite horror movies of the last 5 years. 10 years? 5 years?
I don't know, man.
Enough
He's
years.
everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's so good in literally everything I've seen him in. I have no complaints.
Agreed.
So Terrifier, we're very excited. I feel like next week we're probably going to have more Terrifier news.
Well, the closer we get, the more news there is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just hold tight for any more news there. The second thing on my radar is that Cuckoo came out on digital release. So video on demand. You can rent it for $9.99 or you can own it for $19.99. The Blu-ray and DVD will be coming out on October 22nd.
Now, if you haven't seen Cuckoo yet, first of all, what are you doing? You should definitely check that movie out. It was well worth the time we spent in the theater, well worth the price of admission. But if you're interested in it, we have a review on our channel. It's a full spoiler-free review. You can see what we thought of it. Spoiler alert there, we liked it.
Yeah.
I think it straddles a really fine line between monster movie and folk horror.
It really does. And you know what? The more I sit with it, the more I really love this movie. I think about it a lot. Like, more than I probably should. It's a movie that's always sort of in the back of my mind. So it definitely stuck with me in a very weird way. I don't know what it is about this movie in particular that really struck me, but it has, I think about it like almost every single day. It's so weird. Are you okay?
Forgive me, I have a tickle in my throat. Yeah, no, Cuckoo was a movie that I thought was extremely chaotic and well structured and kept you guessing the entire runtime.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's lasted in terms of the impression for me. I don't know if it's lasted the same way it lasted with you.
I don't know what it is about this. I really need to watch it again. So I think we are going to be purchasing it on at least on VOD. That way we have a copy of it here. Whether or not we buy the Blu-ray, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that watching it again would probably give me a better handle on how I land with it. I really enjoyed the movie. That is not up for debate, but is it going to make my top 5 list for the year? Probably on my top 10, but is it going to make my top 5? I guess we all have to stick around and find out whether or not that's the case.
I'm really excited to kind of get into that later this year because I feel like between the two of us, we've really watched a lot of films and we haven't necessarily even seen like the same films.
The ones that we're watching apart are from our backlog for the most part. I don't think there's anything except for maybe Starve Acre, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, that came out this year that we haven't seen together.
Lisa Frankenstein,
Lisa
Abigail.
Frankenstein and Abigail. Okay, fair point.
I have watched a couple of 2024 horror films.
I'm not you, so I don't know what you do in your free time.
Well, we talk about it.
Well, yeah.
On this channel.
Yeah, no, there's that too.
You should stay tuned for what we've watched this week.
That's a fair point. All right.
The third piece of news is a trailer dropped for a film that was actually filmed in 2022.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Finally coming out. It is called Hayride to Hell. It stars Bill Moseley and Kane Hodder.
I like both of those folks. I'm very excited for this film specifically, just with that casting announcement. Now, you would have to assume it had been filmed before because Bill Moseley was in a bicycle accident.
He was.
A few months ago and had some pretty significant injuries for what sounded like a run-of-the-mill accident. But
he's doing conventions again, though.
He's back up and running, but the past few months have been difficult for him.
Yeah. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that it premiered in 2022. They may have filmed it prior to that, but it was around that time. So it's coming out on September 24th. Okay. So that is very soon.
Yeah.
And it is set on the Cox family farm in rural Willis County. Farmer Sam exacts his bloody revenge on unscrupulous local townfolk, including Sheriff Jubal, who menace him and attempt to steal the farm that has been in his family for 20 years. I watched the trailer for this, and it looks like a fun time.
Yeah, anything with Kane Hodder is going to be a fun time.
Yes, and we get to see Kane without a bunch of makeup on, without a mask on, which I just think is great.
Hopefully not breaking himself too. Like, he has given so much to the genre already in terms of physical performances. I don't need to see him like get burnt up again or like have a deck collapse on him or nearly break his face on some stairs. Yeah. He's really done a lot, done enough.
Yeah, but what I did see from the trailer, so it seems like the town folk are trying to take this farm away from Bill Moseley's character, and he tells them that he'll bet his whole farm if he can scare them for one night. And they're like, "You think we're afraid of a haunted hayride?" And this is where it's gonna go
Listen,
awry.
I've been on some pretty good haunted hayrides in my day.
Have. I know. So it looks like the vibes look very good. It looks a little cheesy, but that's the kind of movie that I love sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and I'll definitely check it out for Bill Moseley and Kane Hodder.
Any day of the week.
I am a big fan of both of those men. We have met both of those men, and they are fantastic human beings.
Yeah.
The next big piece of news, one of your favorites from this week, I think. Larry Fessenden is receiving the Leviathan Award at the 2024 Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, getting a career honor there for Larry, who I feel like is our friend, even though he doesn't know us.
He doesn't know us at all, but I do enjoy everything he puts out.
Yep.
I'm always excited to see him pop up in whatever random film he's doing, from Killers of the Flower Moon to Maxine to... We watched Jugface a few weeks ago. We talked about it here in the live stream, and we really thought that was a great movie. We thought Larry was great in it, and I can't say enough about how much we actually like him. He's a wild man, and
he is.
I have a soft spot in my heart for that.
He's also in one of my favorite horror films, You're Next.
Yeah, he is.
Do not forget about that.
Yeah.
So I love Larry and very happy for him. To tie in with the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, that mystery clip that everybody thought was Creep 3, we got an update on what this movie is.
Not in fact Creep 3.
Correct. It is going to be debuting at Beyond Fest and at the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival. It is going to be a new indie movie called Who's Watching, written and directed by Tim Kasher. So it follows the character of Caleb, who becomes obsessed with a coworker.
Okay.
And at first he tricks her into spending time with her under the pretense that he's making a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But as he becomes more and more attached and she starts to doubt his true intentions, Caleb starts to turn dark and dangerous lengths to get close to his colleague.
That's how I met you, right? I was a fake documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Untrue. That is untrue.
That is untrue. But so that makes more sense. Now, kind of knowing what the concept is, that clip makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, the vibes felt a little impersonal for Creep. I feel like outside of the last shot of the original Creep, where he sets up the camera and meets the guy down by the river, or the lake.
Yeah.
It feels like Creep is a vastly personal movie.
Right.
Creep 2, arguably more personal.
Right.
It felt a little impersonal for Creep. I wasn't sold on that theory. I will say, and especially with the Creep tapes coming out soon, we wouldn't be getting
a new
an
movie.
Unsolicited teaser trailer for a film. Yeah. But this makes a lot of sense, and it's interesting. You're always going to get me with found footage. There's never going to. I never met a found footage movie I didn't like. Some I like more than others, but I always enjoy found footage. It's a visceral genre. It makes me feel like I'm a part of it. It makes me feel voyeuristic, like I'm seeing something I shouldn't, and it makes me feel like I'm literally a part of what I'm seeing.
Right. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be interesting. I'll definitely check it out, especially if it's a new indie horror movie. I know we've talked about it a lot. Vince really talks about a lot how we need to lift up our indie filmmakers. We need to support those kinds of films because that is what is going to keep this genre going.
Yeah, I think the UK is doing it particularly well right now.
I know, you've been watching a lot of European horror movies.
Irish and English horror movies specifically, with much success. I've been finding some really great gems out there, and these are things that people are talking about. I'm not uncovering the next unknown great horror film here, but... And even when I think about American horror films that are right now operating, I've watched two recently. I watched Milk and Cereal and Stream, and neither one of those were a miss for me. I think that both had some ups and downs in the writing. That said, I think they were both fantastic films, and I had a blast watching both. And I'm amazed, having produced, having directed, having acted, I'm amazed at what these filmmakers are able to do on such a small budget. We look at like Starve Acre, which we're going to talk about. I keep talking. I'm like, wow, I seem really excited to talk about this movie.
You're very excited about it.
But £250,000, and they made this beautiful film. I'm always just amazed, and I have nothing but respect. And I think that really is the crux of the argument here. If you can't respect what these people are putting out, if you just sit back and you're like, well, that was trash, that was trash, that was trash, and you don't have a respect for what it took to get it from concept to consumption, then you're missing the point. And I'm not gatekeeping here. You're still a horror fan as far as I'm concerned. If you like horror movies, if you like a horror movie, you're a horror fan. Full stop. Welcome to the channel. I'm Vince. Lovely to have you here. But if we're just all dumping on horror films because they're not exactly what we would have done, then what we should do is get a script, get a camera, and do what we wanted to do. And put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people that criticize, and like, of course, there are some things in certain movies that we don't love, you know,
absolutely.
and I'm not afraid to call that out. But overall, I love this genre, and I love what everybody is willing to do for this genre, the risks that people are willing to take for this genre. It's so important, and we are seeing such an influx of horror movies right now because those are the kinds of stories that need to be told.
Yeah, and a lot of the time on this channel, as this channel grows and develops, what we're finding is when we're covering something, there's so much out there to cover. When we're covering something, we're recommending something. It's rare that we're going to cover something that we don't recommend. And so if it seems like a lot of our reviews, our shorts, and even our long-form videos, if it seems like a lot of them are positive, it's because we're probably not talking about the movies we don't like because we're not trying to add negativity to that. Somebody poured their heart and soul into that, unless it was some churned out studio nonsense, but
yeah, if it's churned out studio nonsense, I'll call that out.
Yeah, but we probably won't even cover it.
No.
You know, but at the end of the day, if you see it on our channel, we'll tell you if we recommend it or not, but it's likely that we do.
Yep, absolutely. Well, on that note, let's move to the next piece of news because it seems like we are getting now with the Winnie the Pooh movies. Now we're getting princesses preparing to fight for the death in a movie called Fairest of Them All.
I see that.
So a new poster dropped for this film with the synopsis: the Mad Hatter has hunted down princesses from the fairy tale lands, Ariel, Belle, Alice, Cinderella, Snow White, Tinkerbell, and Sleeping Beauty, and make them fight in a Hunger style death match.
A Hunger Games style?
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. To decide who is the fairest of them all.
All right, so let's just, taking this at face value, is this a fair fight? Tinkerbell's a literal fairy. She's literally magic. How are they gonna, I mean, I guess you can, like, get her, you know, but, like, this is water, yeah. But, like, when you clap, she's just gonna get stronger.
That's true.
So, like, I don't know if this is a fair fight.
Maybe because they're not clapping for her, if nobody's clapping for her, maybe she's not gonna have the strength to
maybe
fight.
Just coming in, nobody's gonna, maybe they'll boo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think this whole thing sounds stacked in the magic one's favor. I will check this movie out. And all things said, I'm going to check this movie out. So we have a spooky baby. And of course, as you do with babies, you're exposing them to content as they're able to be exposed to content. And a lot of the content she's consuming, and again, it's not much. She is a baby.
Right.
It's like princess content. I can't tell you how many outfits she has with a princess on it. So I feel like this is a way for me to indulge my wife in her princess habit, as well as indulge my own horror habit. And not that you don't have a horror habit.
I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
But you also have a princess habit.
That's true. I'm eclectic, guys.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a common ground where our interests are meeting, and I'm okay with this. I'm also interested to see the Steamboat Mickey horror movie. Although we are very far behind. We've not seen Blood and Honey 1 or 2.
No.
Nor have we seen the mean one, and that one hurts me.
It does?
Yeah, I feel like we should see it. We're such David Howard Thornton stans in this house. Why have we not seen the mean one?
Well, we should just put it on our list of things to watch.
We have a list.
We have a list. That'll be one that we watch together. Next up, we have the Panic Primer Pack. So this is a new sci-fi horror comic book from Panic Entertainment. So they launched this thing on Zoop, which I had never heard of before. I guess it's like a Kickstarter, Indiegogo type situation called Zoop, Z-O-O-P. And they're launching 3 titles with this.
Okay.
So the first one is Tama, and that's apparently Chucky meets Pokemon.
Now, literally, Chucky, or are they telling this is the
No,
vibe
no,
check?
no. It's the vibe check. Like it's like a Child's Play meets Pokemon, which I'm not 100% sure what that means.
I would have to assume there's a serial killer inside of Pikachu. That's my assumption.
I would also like that. I would like to see that. Savager #1 is Mad Max meets H.P. Lovecraft. So post-apocalyptic
Cosmic
Cthulhu?
horror. Yeah. I'd be interested in that. That's something I would give a chance to.
Yeah. And then Black Diamond is a Nordic thriller with Wicker Man and Hitchcock vibes.
Doesn't the Wicker Man have some Hitchcock vibes?
That's what I thought too, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be...
This is very interesting, though. I'm very interested because this is an indie comic, and they're just launching this. I came across this by chance, and I was like, we'll definitely give it a...
Yeah, you're going to get my attention with horror comics, period. Yeah. I enjoy them. I tend to get wrapped up in that sort of thing. And the vibe checks that they're citing here, the sort of log lines for these aren't outside of the things that I like.
Right.
And so it does sound like something that I'll pick up.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And on Zoop, if you go to their page, there are a bunch of different options there to get rewards based on what they're doing. So Vince just looked it up. It looks like they are a little over halfway to their $10,000 goal. And they still have, how many days?
25.
25 days left.
For as low as $15, you can get digital copies. For $30, you can get the first 3 issues bundle. They have a metal cover first 3 issues, and those, I think they are literally metal cover versions.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I saw whenever I looked at it.
I was like, is that like metal, or is that like a literal...
No, I think it's actual metal.
That's kind of wild for $150. For $130, you get everything. You get all the issue ones. You get
the metal covers.
No, I don't think you get the metal covers with that, but you do get the digital versions. It seems like, and you can get graded copies as well if you wanted to save them and sell them later. They are $300 and $500 for graded bundles, both non-metal and metal. You can even get retailer bundles if you wanted to recommend it to your local comic book shop, and they also have a tip jar. If you just want to come in and support them, help them get closer to their goal, they have that as well. I should not get on my soapbox in this live, but I'm going to. When I was coming out of college, I'm going to. It's,
I know.
We do this all the time. When I was coming out of college, when I was coming out of theater school, I had some really good friends who decided to self-publish a comic. I have a copy of that back there. I was a comic book character for 1 issue.
I know.
It lasted 1 issue. But I think about what could have been with that company if they had things like Kickstarter or, I guess, Zoop when we were coming out of college many years ago. And I think about what that company did afterwards and the platform they've given to independent writers as a publishing house and the resource they are to other people who are fans of comics, sci-fi, horror with their news agency. And I have a lot of respect for independent publishers because of that. And that's why I talk about people like Comicsburg out of Pittsburgh. And I guess we can give some love to Fan-Based Press.
Yeah, that's how I found this. So if you are interested, I found it from Fan-Based Press. So you can also check out their comics. They do a little bit of everything in terms of their publishing, but they also have some really great content over there. So if you are interested in that, I would definitely check it out.
One of their first books was called Something Animal, which was a twist on the werewolf story, and it was a good book. It was a horror book. That's why I think of it. But they've had Eisner Award nominated books. Fan-Based Press, they're fantastic.
But that's how I found this.
They don't know we're talking about them right now.
They don't. But I'm sure that they will after we're done.
Maybe.
So next up, if we are ready to move on.
Yeah, let's go for it.
We have Shudder's Seasons of Screams has started. We are not sponsored by Shudder.
Nope.
But I do want to run through some of the fun things that they have.
Make a quick pass at it.
So first of all, for the 31 days of Halloween, they are doing 31% off on their annual plan. So if you are not subscribed to Shudder, You should be. We're getting into spooky season. They've got tons of content, things that I'm going to be mentioning right now. And why not? It's such a fun time.
Yeah.
It's a great platform. If you are interested at all in horror, I definitely recommend getting that subscription.
I know their prices went up last year, and we saw it. We just renewed like a few months ago. I would renew at this price if I could. I think we paid $75, $76 for our annual subscription, which in the streamer landscape is literally so low.
It is.
And what you get for that subscription is literally so high. We're not sponsored by Shudder. I feel like we need to say that again because it sounds like we are.
We're not.
We love them. They're
I
fantastic.
would love to be sponsored by Shudder.
Yeah, no, reach out.
But we're not. We're just big fans.
Inquiries are in our link tree if you want to send us an email.
Yes. They also are having a new Ghoul log. So if you are not subscribed to Shudder, and then you get the subscription, watch the old Ghoul logs. They are fantastic. They give such a good vibe. Larry Fessenden actually directed one.
Exactly what I was going to say. Find the one directed by Larry. I got jump scared by it. It puts you you're nicely at ease in front of the Ghoul log a burning, and then wild stuff happens because it's Larry.
It's Larry. The Spooky Baby did love Larry's Ghoul log as well.
Spooky Baby loves the Ghoul log.
Yeah.
She's a big fan of lights.
It's such a just a nice, relaxing time unless you're watching Larry Fessenden's.
Yeah. I'll say that's a July 4th tradition in this house. To kick off our spooky season start, on July 4th, we'll put on a Ghoul log and light a candle from a major retailer who does really great autumn scents. And
we're also not sponsored by them,
no,
so
we're
not gonna.
We're not gonna give them love.
No. They're also doing watch parties every Friday night at 9 p.m. So this is another great way to get involved with their community. They're doing those watch parties, and that is happening 9 p.m. They just did Neo Slasher, so they showed In a Violent Nature, which is now on their platform. If you haven't seen that film yet, a good enough reason to get that subscription.
Now that's a film that may crack my top 10 of the year. I had a great time with that movie.
I know you did. And tomorrow they are doing Zombie Weekend, so they're doing The Sadness and the Undead. On the 27th, they are doing A Modern Master, and they are covering one of your new favorites, Damien McCarthy.
I have to describe Damien McCarthy as a modern master. They're doing Oddity and Caveat, and we're going to be talking about Caveat here in like 5 minutes. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Caveat, either watch the short for the 1-minute version or stick around while I gush about Damien McCarthy for 5 solid minutes in about 5 minutes.
On October 4th, this is probably my favorite pairing and one that I will be staying up for.
Okay, I just want to bracket that, but this is the found footage pairing.
I know. I know. Weird things can sometimes happen, guys. It could be my favorite, but we're getting VHS Beyond and Hell House LLC. First of all, I love the Hell House movies so much. I love them so. They're probably my favorite found footage franchise.
Yeah.
And I am not afraid to say that. The first one is so scary, so spooky.
Definitely stronger than the vibes.
It has such good vibes. And that's the one that they're showing. Now, I love Hell House 3.
This is one of your the hottest of hot takes out of Sarah.
Yeah.
Most of the commentary surrounding the Hell House series prior to Origins coming out was that Hell House 3 was the worst film in existence, it seems like, when these people are commenting on it. And listen, I respect a lot of the commentators who didn't like Hell House 3.
Sure.
I am of the...
But they're wrong.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion Hell House 2 is the weakest in the series. And it's a fine film. I've rewatched it a number of times since first seeing it. But we have a background in theater. Hell House 3 is an immersive theater event. And the stereotypes and archetypes that are presented in that movie, if you have a background in theater, you will recognize them and associate with them immediately. Like, you will just... These are very true character sketches in that film. And I enjoy how it ties the lore together. But we are going to do a horror hot takes video coming up here in... we might be recording it in just a few minutes. You'll get it in just a few days.
Yes. So if you'd like to hear more of our hot takes, stay tuned.
Or that full hot take.
Yeah. But they're also doing VHS Beyond, which I am so excited about.
Yeah.
So excited.
Mike Flanagan written
Kate Siegel directed. I'm so excited. They are slowly like becoming my favorite, like just horror couple.
Horror power couple?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Are there other horror power couples
I
out
don't
there?
know, but
They
are the horror power couple.
We're going to jot that down for content.
I know. They're so good.
Let us know if you want to hear about horror power couples in the comments.
We'll figure some more
Yeah.
out and maybe do a video on it. October 11th, they're doing Horrifying Households with Daddy's Head and Metamorphosis.
I don't know either of these films.
I don't either.
Is that Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis?
I have no idea.
I would love if they did a horror version of Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis.
I mean, that kind of is a horror in and of itself.
It kind of is a horror show. What a good body horror, like, short story. If you've not read Kafka, I guess we'll recommend Kafka tonight as well.
Yeah, right. Shocking Scourges, Mads, and Virus 32. I've never heard of these movies either.
I think we'll be tuning into both of those.
Yeah. October 25th is TBA, so we'll see what's going on.
That's the scariest one yet.
I know, right? Ooh. October 30th, Late Night with the Devil on Devil's Night.
That is 100% going to make my list of the best of the year.
It's so good.
I really enjoyed Late Night with the Devil. I watched it the day it premiered on Shudder. I watched it without you. That's what set off our trend of independent horror watching. Is
you watched Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah.
Without me.
I co-opted Shudder for the afternoon.
Yeah. And then October 31st, they're showing Halloween on Halloween.
Now, I'm interested to see how these watch parties play out. What is going to be the thing that hooks me in? Because I'm going to be watching Halloween on Halloween. We watched it every year on Halloween. From when I had it on VHS to when we finally committed to buying it on digital to when we got it on 4K.
Mm-hmm.
It's a yearly tradition. What's going to make me go with the Shudder showing of it? Because I'll tell you, those Scream Factory or Shout Factory, the whatever Shout imprint, that 4K version is my preferred version of the film at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't know what these watch parties... We didn't watch last week on Friday.
Did not.
So I'm not 100% sure what they are all about, but we can check it out.
We were at a haunt, and...
We were. That took precedent.
Yeah, it's our favorite haunt. Check our Instagram for that if you want to see some photos of this haunt. It is a wild ride.
It's so good, and we love them over there at that haunt. We got more Terrifier news.
We have Day of the Dead on Day of the Dead as well.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, November 1st.
I'm so sorry.
That's when we wrap up the Shudder.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
I totally I was like, we're moving
we have
on.
to honor Romero. That's the only reason.
True. What a good Romero too. I feel like an underrated of the Dead movies.
In our travels, we have met a lot of those folks. John Amplis is behind me there. A signature from an autograph from John Amplis is behind me. And what a good group of people.
Yes.
Laurie Cardill.
Yeah.
Her daughter's actually a performer as well and a lovely person. John Amplis. There's some Mark Tierno's in that movie. A random Romero guy. If you watch in the background, you will see Mark Tierno pop up. Lots and lots of good folks in that movie. Yeah,
and I just feel like it. I mean, I love Dawn. Dawn is probably my favorite Romero.
That's a tough call.
It's my favorite Dead movie.
Yeah.
Because Martin might be my favorite Romero.
That's where I was going with it. Martin probably is my favorite Romero.
So good.
But Night of the Living Dead is such a good movie as well. We had the chance to meet Judith O'Dea.
We met
Judith Ridley, Russ Striner a couple of times. I'm drawing a blank. Who else? Who else is on that poster over there?
John Russo.
John Russo a couple of times. John Russo loves Spooky Baby.
And Kira Shawn.
Yes. Kira was so nice as well.
Yeah.
Most of the main cast of Night of the Living Dead we had a chance to meet, and they were just such great people. I think
at the very last Living Dead weekend that they did in
Evans City, Pennsylvania.
So that was very, very special.
We popped up to the cemetery afterwards.
We did.
Very respectfully. Some people were less respectful.
Yeah.
But we were not in zombie costumes.
This was last year.
Yeah.
I was very pregnant.
You were almost 9 months pregnant.
Yeah, I was 9 months pregnant.
Yeah. But I think that the highlight of the whole trip for me, when I was like, let's go travel. Let's go do this. And you were like, whoa, I guess do it.
I was like, I guess it'll be okay. Hopefully.
When Judith O'Dea saw how excited I was to meet her, I think that was the highlight of I feel like I made her excited by how excited I was to actually meet her. That was very special.
She was so lovely, and that whole weekend was a very special weekend.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
And we were literally only there for one day, but it was, what a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get to a horror convention, please do it.
Yeah, horror conventions have a different atmosphere
Yes.
than like Comic-Cons. And I know Comic-Cons are starting to book more horror guests. Horror, look, it's still counterculture, and I love it for being counterculture, but it's becoming more mainstream. So you'll see more horror guests at Comic-Cons. Go, have a great time, enjoy yourself, cosplay, have a good time. But if you can get to a horror convention, the vibes are different. And I feel really strongly about this too. It's that the horror community is such a good-hearted community, different than other conventions. Even some of the people we have, like friends we have that are vendors, say the same thing. It's that comic book conventions definitely draw a different crowd. And the nicest people, the nicest guests we've met, the nicest like celebrities, if you want to say that we met, were at horror conventions.
Yeah, the vibes there are definitely unparalleled. It is just so exciting. Everybody, if you're waiting in line with somebody, everybody's so friendly. It is just a wonderful time. I'm very excited. We're actually going to get to go to Scarefest weekend in Lexington, Kentucky.
If you recognize us there, we'll be there with Spooky Baby. Stop by and get a sticker from us. We have some stickers to give out. They say stay spooky, just like the logo on the screen right now. You can get a sticker that looks like that.
Yeah, so we're very excited. They have 100 guests.
Yeah, I don't know if the time budget or the financial budget can sustain Scarefest.
I know.
But we're gonna have to make some hard decisions and prioritize really hard.
We're gonna have to try. I mean, they are getting some heavy hitters too.
Yeah, they really are. Dick Warlock will be there. Roger L. Jackson from Scream, the voice of Ghostface, the cast of the Blair Witch Project, Alex Vincent, Christine Elise.
Devin Sawa.
Devin Sawa will be there. Sarah wants to meet him for a second time.
I love him. I love him so much.
He's
so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, and he's so cool.
Yes, and I will talk more about Devin a little bit later because I finished something up. So we'll get back to him. But the big thing and the big reason that we're even going a second day to Scarefest is because Clive Barker will be there.
Yes, Clive Barker will be there. I don't know how that slipped my mind, but that's like the reason we got 2-day tickets.
Right.
Was to meet Clive Barker. There are people out there who've read more Clive Barker than I have, but the Clive Barker I read is some of my favorite prose, I think.
Yeah.
And I went, right around 2021, I went down a giant Hellraiser rabbit hole, and Sarah's like, "You good, man?" I was like, "I'm good. We got them. I'm okay." Cool. What's up next?
Yeah, so we have more Terrifier news. So Ice Nine Kills is going to be doing a song on the Terrifier soundtrack called A Work of Art.
Yeah, Spencer Charnas is doing a lot for the horror community. I have to say, Ice Nine Kills is very popular. I totally get it. And the fact that Spencer's actually a part of a film instead of paying homage to a film is really cool for him.
Yeah, I am very excited to hear it. It is going to be releasing with that soundtrack, so it should be coming out on the 11th.
Nice.
So that'll be exciting. The people that are seeing the film tonight are obviously probably going to hear it first.
Wish we could be there.
I
Is that
know.
in Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hike.
Texas.
That would be a hike for us.
So next up, Paranormal Activity is going to be back in theaters for the 15th anniversary.
Don't do that to me. Don't you 15th anniversary me. Oh man, that was the first year we were living together, and a very long time ago.
A very long time ago.
Is that part of Blumfest?
It is part of Blumfest.
Good old Blumfest. Yeah. Now I know I just said we don't shit on things, but Blumhouse is a large studio, and I am gonna shit on Blumfest as the name of a thing. I don't know about that. I don't know about that name choice.
We do call Jason Blumhouse a lot.
Yeah.
But look, nothing against him.
I love Blumhouse. I do. But I'm not going to take a moment to not just say that's a ridiculous name for a festival. I'm know what else would you call it though.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's the only thing you can call it. It just sounds so weird to me.
I guess they could call it like Blumhouse Fest if you really wanted to, but like that sounds even worse.
I probably would have ended up calling it Blumfest anyway.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
They're just appealing to your natural nature.
Exactly.
So other films included in the screening are going to be Lights Out, Insidious Chapter 2, Happy Death Day, and The Black Phone.
Yeah, some really good films, actually.
Yeah.
And when you kind of take a look at the history of Blumhouse, and you start looking back, Paranormal Activity might not be my favorite film, but it was so influential. Mm-hmm. The Black Phone, I may think there's some unevenness in some of the acting, but Ethan Hawke is impeccable in that movie.
So
and it's
good.
everything I have in me not to grab a Grabber Funko Pop to put in my little pop collection that runs on this shelf above us. Maybe one day I'll show those off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, should I get a Grabber?
Every single time I see one in the wild, I also want to grab it.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those masks that they released.
I know, they're so good.
There's a shop locally that has 4 of them they found in their warehouse.
They have 4 of them?
4 of them they found in their warehouse, and they're like, these are going to go quick. Come in today to get them. It was like 2 days ago. And I was like...
Oh, and they're gone.
Well, they probably are, but I literally was like, hey, do you feel like driving an hour?
The answer is no.
Yeah, the answer was, I don't know about that.
Well, he didn't ask, but it probably would have been
It's the wall
no.
space, man.
Yeah.
The space is limited.
It is.
The studio is not infinitely big.
No. The last piece of news is going to be that Dark Sky is unveiling the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 50th anniversary Chainsaw Edition.
If you haven't seen this thing, it is outstanding. It's like $300?
Yeah.
Something like that, but it is a literal Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, in a chainsaw case with a ton of extras. Mm-hmm. Now, if I hadn't just bought the game when Steam had it on sale, and if I didn't just go to that toy store we just mentioned and leave with a 4K version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre already, I might be buying this.
Well, can I convince you of something?
Okay.
Opening the chainsaw triggers the sound of Leatherface wielding the chainsaw in the film.
Now, is it the chainsaw sound or is it Leatherface?
It's both.
That's fantastic. I'm here for it. Now, we do have a chainsaw on the set. It's buried. It's right next to the pumpkin, right next to Ghostface. If you could see this, it was a chainsaw that's almost identical to the one used in the film, except it is electric. We used it in a production that we did in 2015. So it's also covered with a really resilient silicone-based stage blood.
Yep.
So there is a chainsaw in the Nerd Nook already, and I can easily go... I can make that noise. I'm pretty good at it.
Oh, yes, indeed. But yes, there's a lot of special features, lots of commentaries. Toby Hooper's on a lot of them, which is, you know, just very bittersweet.
Dude, fun fact about that movie. When Marilyn Burns screams when she's tied down and they need to give some blood for Grandpa, Grandpa is the best smasher, by the way. But Gunnar Hansen actually cut her with the knife because she couldn't scream right. And they were in that room and it was so hot and the food was rotting after like 12 hours of shooting and he just got sick of it and he literally cut her.
That's crazy.
The 70s were wild, man.
Yeah, he probably shouldn't have done that.
No, you should not have done that at all. But like the fact that nobody's like, Gunnar, you're off the movie.
Speaking of Grandpa, though, there's
Grandpa's
a bunch of, there's Grandpa Tales, an interview with actor John Dugan.
We've seen that.
Yes, and Dr. W.E. Barnes presents Making Grandpa.
I think we've seen that too. We went on a Grandpa rabbit hole.
We love Grandpa.
The Grandpa's like our favorite Sawyer in this house. You're really getting me jazzed up to watch that 4K. We bought it and we've not watched it.
No, we
have it on digital. And like sometimes the trip over to the Blu-ray player feels like a long walk, like a long 7 steps across the family room. But I think I might put that on tonight.
Are you going to go to sleep watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I might go to sleep. I might not watch Long Legs tonight and put on some TCM tonight.
Oh, I thought that was our last piece, but it's not. Fangoria Magazine Chainsaw Awards are going to be on October 13th.
Yeah, some pretty good presenters, including Larry Fessenden.
Larry Fessenden.
How many times are we going to name drop this dude in this stream?
A lot. Good old Larry.
Larry's great.
There's also going to be Fede Alvarez,
Yeah.
Skeet,
Lauren Rivera.
Yes. Lots of Tiffany Shepis.
Tiffany Shepis.
Lots of great
I'm
people.
so glad they got Tiffany Shepis.
I know.
If you're not listening to Casualty Fridays with Kane Hodder, Felissa Rose, and Tiffany Shepis, what are you doing? It's a bi-weekly podcast releasing on Fridays, and they are fantastic.
They're very funny.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very funny. They're very good friends, so it's a really fun time.
And they're all lovely people. I will say that of all the people we've met at cons, and I know I just said that horror conventions are the kindest celebrities, the kindest guests, the kindest fans. Tiffany Shepis really went out of her way to make us have a good time that weekend. We had Spooky Baby. Spooky Baby must have been, what, 6 months old, maybe? 5? 4?
She was 4 months old.
Yeah, and Tiffany Shepis really went out of her way to make Spooky Baby have a good time and make us have a good time and just chatted us up all weekend long. We had a really great time. Love Tiffany Shepis.
We do. We certainly do. That's all I have.
Yeah, that was a really large roundup.
It was
honestly,
it was a lot of news.
It was almost
this
an
week.
hour of news.
I know. It was a lot of news this week.
Yeah, if you're still hanging on out there, I appreciate you. Hopefully you've seen not all of that news, and some of it was actually new news to you. Let's talk about what we were watching and then sort of wind down a bit.
Yeah.
So we watched a lot this week.
We did.
I read a bunch. You read some?
Did.
Yeah.
Yes. So the one thing that we watched together, because we try and watch at least one thing together per week. Again, it's really hard because of Spooky Baby.
Spooky Baby doesn't like bedtime.
No.
So even just getting on these live streams can be challenging sometimes.
But we did watch Beetlejuice because
did.
it had been a while since we had both seen it.
Yeah, and I always loved Beetlejuice.
Me too.
I remember being way into the animated series, having action figures. But it's better than I remember it being.
I agree.
And that's coming from a place of like, oh, I love Beetlejuice. I haven't seen it in maybe a decade.
Yeah.
But it is, first of all, there's so much humor in that film that I did not understand as a child.
Absolutely not. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. But moreover, like, it's such a good example of all the reasons why I love Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And loved Tim Burton prior to like 2009 specifically. Like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice, I'm sure those are someone's comfort movie.
Yeah, Ed Wood.
Ed Wood is always the one we forget about. Yeah, no, for real.
I love that movie. But
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
yeah, but Beetlejuice is so good. Winona Ryder is so good in that movie. And obviously Michael Keaton, who is now going by Michael Keaton Douglas.
Love that for him.
He's also just a joy in that film, and obviously Catherine O'Hara. So I'm really excited to see Beetlejuice. We haven't had a chance to go and see it yet, but I'm very excited about it when we do get to see it. I also watched a film called Things Heard and Seen.
Yeah.
It is, I watched it on Netflix. It is, I would say, kind of a psychological horror / ghost story that happens. It's very interesting. It stars Amanda Seyfried and James Norton.
Okay.
They play a married couple. There is Amanda Seyfried's character. She has an eating disorder, so if that is something that is sensitive to you, you may want to skip this film because of that specifically. And they don't pull any punches. It's in like the first 2 minutes of the film. So if you're sensitive to that, definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah. That can be touchy.
It can be. But I thought that James Norton in particular, it was a very strong performance. I thought that the performances were very, very good. There was some unevenness with the writing, and there was also some unevenness with the CGI. And it's interesting because this film came out in 2021 and it felt like it came out in like 2015.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure what the budgetary restrictions were that made it like this.
You get super weird with CGI. Like if it's not like 100% smooth, you're like, wah.
Yeah, it sort of like takes me out of it a little bit, and
well, practical effects are almost always going to be superior in the first place. Now, was she paired better in this film with her husband than she was with Kevin Bacon in You Should Have Left in 2020?
Yes.
That was such a weird pairing.
Yes.
Although I enjoyed You Should Have Left just fine. Although I will say it did stand on the shoulders of House of Leaves a touch. But what a weird pairing of people.
Yeah, a very strange pairing. But yeah, she paired much better with James Norton.
Not a guy 20 years older than her.
No. But basically, James Norton's character, he gets a job upstate New York, and they move the family to this sort of remote little town, and there was a woman who died in the house, and Amanda Seyfried's character doesn't find that out until much later, although he knows that. So there's a long history of bad things happening in that house. Their daughter starts to see ghosts, and that's sort of how it all unravels from there, without getting too much into spoilers. It's an interesting movie. Honestly, I enjoyed it. The things that I didn't love about it, you can get past them. I certainly did. I would definitely give it a rewatch, maybe once. I probably wouldn't purchase it, but it's not a bad film. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, definitely check it out. It is on Netflix. I also, on Netflix, watched Tarot, which was a movie that came out this year.
Yeah, I had my doubts about Tarot. It's interesting, when a film kind of feels like it's capitalizing on a trend, it doesn't necessarily get me excited. I don't know how much backbone that movie was going to have outside of just trying to capitalize on people who purchased tarot decks within the past 6 months.
Yeah. I will say that I thought this movie, I liked it a lot better than I thought I would. Oh. I thought that the monsters in this movie and how they handled them were very, very well done. I do think the movie should have been called Divination instead of Tarot, because it originally was called Horoscopes, and I understand why, because they talk a lot about horoscopes and how your horoscope is... We can do horoscopes with tarot, and
that's a true statement.
It is a true statement, but they kind of like do this weird horoscope reading on everybody at the beginning, and it's very vague, and I don't know what kind of reading they were actually doing.
I don't know. Yeah.
It was sort of odd, but I would say that the movie would have been better off called Divination, but I don't think that it would have been as hard-hitting.
Well, I don't think it would be as capitalistic.
Right.
You know, divination is not a word that people use on the daily, whereas a lot of people went out and bought tarot decks in 2022, 23.
Yeah. But it was honestly interesting. I thought that all of the young performers in this film were very good. I didn't think that the acting was the problem. I thought that some of the writing was a little uneven. And it just sort of missed the mark with me, because they go on about the death card literally meaning death, and they are like, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it means a change, and they actually give the actual meaning of the death card, but it just felt crunchy to me. Sometimes it can mean death,
but I know. You know, when you're using that as a plot device.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then I watched Chucky season 3 because I'm so far behind. Because Spooky Baby, you know, it's hard. That's like 8 hours of television to watch, and that's a long time. It's 8 episodes. But man, oh man, that was the best season of, I think it was the best season of Chucky so far.
Just roll like me and don't sleep.
Yeah. You know, who needs sleep?
You can look this young if you just don't sleep.
But it was so good. Devon Sawa in particular ripped my heart out and stomped on it, and then made me laugh so hard in other sequences.
He's just a good guy.
I know. Brad Dourif, so good this season.
You're just saying true things. Brad Dourif is always good.
The only criticism that I have on this particular season of Chucky is that we didn't get enough of Andy, Alex
Yeah.
Vincent. We didn't get any Kyle.
Yeah, that's a disappointment for me. And I like Christine Elise. And if
I
you're
do
going to bring
too.
her back, if you're going to tie into, don't argue with me, the best Child's Play 2,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to bring her back from that property, you got to run with it.
Yeah.
Child's Play 2 is, it's the height of what old Child's Play used to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bride of Chucky is the kickoff for new Child's Play. I know that's your favorite. I'm sorry. And for me, I really do enjoy Cult and Curse of Chucky. I think those are fine films. It is a true shame that they went straight to streaming or straight to DVD. I would, if they do a release of those in theaters, I'll be the first person to buy tickets. I think they are amazing films. But Child's Play 2, bring it back to the 80s. In my heyday, I remember sneaking up and watching Child's Play 2 on HBO and being entirely freaked out. I saw that one was the first one I saw in its entirety. I loved it. And to bring Christine Elise back in seasons 1 and 2, I believe, yeah, and not pay that off. It feels like a missed opportunity. I know that there's a large cast.
Yeah.
And I know you can't service everyone appropriately. And Nika apparently was not overused.
Nika was not overused, which is such a shame because Fiona does such a good job. Fiona Dourif does such a good job.
And what an interesting character arc as well, from Curse of Chucky all the way through.
I will say that we do see Fiona in another capacity. If you've not watched Chucky, then
that's fantastic. That's great news. That's great news.
Then you won't know. But if you have watched Chucky, you'll know that Fiona plays another role on the show.
Yeah.
That is pretty significant, and she does such a good job.
So Nika is underused. Fiona's used the appropriate amount.
I would say no. Still,
Yeah.
she is featured in, I believe it's only one episode that she is utilized in that capacity.
That's a bummer too.
Which is a shame. But I will say that the way that they utilized her in that role this season, Vince, you gotta watch it.
I
it's
will
so
indeed.
good. I am also in the middle of reading My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. And I wish I was further along in it, but you know, I sleep. So,
Lame.
that's, I know.
Super lame.
Vince?
All right, so I had a pretty busy week myself. I watched Caveat, which, check out the short. It's right to the point of what I thought, but I loved it. I think every moment of this movie is masterfully crafted to create tension and suspense. If you haven't seen the movie, it's about a man whose landlord asks him to go to this remote house on an island, the man can't swim, to babysit the landlord's niece who's suffering with some mental illness. When they arrive, she's catatonic, and he's like, oh, well, this shouldn't be too hard, until the landlord tells him, you got to wear this leather vest that her grandmother, the niece's grandmother, used to wear to prevent her from sleepwalking, or at least prevent her from getting out of the house when she did. And you'll be locked in it. It's chained down in the basement. You can't go in a couple of rooms, including the niece's room. She'll feel more comfortable. That's the setup. There are big twists and turns. It's essentially a mystery. If you've seen Oddity, you know how this film sort of plays out. The bad people are just as bad as the supernatural elements, if not worse. It feels like an old EC comic where the bad guys learn their lesson and the supernatural elements are just as threatening, but those are the icing on the cake. You know, that's the twisty part. It's tense. It's a very tense film. I really enjoyed it. Caveat, if you've not seen it, check it out. If you liked Oddity and you saw earlier this year, check out anything by Damien McCarthy, which I believe is only the 2 films at the moment. I cannot wait to see what Damien McCarthy does next. And I'll absolutely be tuning into Shudder for the Modern Master weekend to rewatch both of those films if I get a chance to. I also, in my week of creepy bunnies, checked out Starve Acre, which also features a creepy bunny. Caveat has this wind-up toy that plays the drums. It's sort of a dowsing rod of sorts whenever something's hidden in the house or something creepy is nearby, something creepy's afoot. Bunny starts drumming, and if you watch closely in Oddity, if you've seen that film, you'll notice it as an Easter egg in one of the early scenes. So to continue my week of creepy bunnies, I watched Starve Acre, which is based on a novel, and it is a folk horror film in one of the truest senses. It's a slow burn. I got the vibes that this film was set in the 70s, although I didn't look this up to confirm it. The exposure, like the white balance, was very blown out. It looked like a 70s film in that respect. the costumes and cars and all the things you would go to identify where the period piece, the key indicators of what period we're in were all pointing towards 70s. But a couple and their young son move out to the grandfather's land. And it's like acres of land, and it's in the hills of like outside of in the UK countryside, in the England's countryside. And on this land, there's this giant oak tree that had been cut down in the 17th century by Christians because it was a gathering place for pagans. And the kid's like, hey, wasn't there an oak tree out here? And he's like, yeah, that's we'll go try and dig it up. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for you in this movie because 20 minutes in, there is a Hereditary level twist, which had my jaw on the ground. Starvaker is fantastic in doing that, just hitting you with a left turn that you're like, what the? Where did this come from? It's essentially, for me, it feels like 3 different movies. It feels like a movie about a family with a troubled child. The kid has an outburst at a fair, which is like disgusting and alarming, and dealing with this troubled child. And then it feels like a movie about grief. And then it feels like a movie that goes full tilt into folk horror. And so you have these 3 distinct acts, 3 different vibes. And I don't know if that took me out of it. I did feel like I was getting a bit distracted in the middle of the film. But overall, I think it was an interesting meditation on returning to the land, and an interesting meditation on parenthood, to be sure. And as a new parent, I really identified with some of the things. If there are children involved, I'm going to be much more sensitive to the content now, and I didn't think that was going to be the case. In fact, I made it about 8 or 9 months, 6 to 8 months, without really starting to feel sensitive to that content. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in my next entry here. But Starvaker was a slow burn folk horror in the truest sense, coming right out of the UK, right out of the birthplace of folk horror, and standing on the shoulders of things like The Wicker Man or The Blood on Satan's Claw. Next up, I finished, I should say, because I talked about this before, Clown in a Cornfield. Adam Caesar does a fantastic job. Follow him on TikTok. He has some great content on TikTok. But Clown in a Cornfield, I didn't realize when I bought it, was a young adult horror book. And that doesn't hold me back from liking it at all. I really enjoyed it. And that's surprising for me because I also read some extreme horror this week. And I can handle that. I have the chops to handle something like Womb, which I'll talk about in just a second. But what Clown in a Cornfield did really well is put me in the same headspace as the movie Thanksgiving. And I was going to say, oh, well, but it's young adult horror. It maybe isn't as graphic and violent as Thanksgiving. And that's not the case. It's violent. The twists, there are 2 main twists in this novel. I didn't see either one coming, which is saying something. I'm not always going to be ahead of the curve with a twist. But oftentimes I can call it pretty quickly. I didn't see either of these coming. The first twist more so than the second, which in hindsight, they're really well scripted, really well telegraphed, and I was just that absorbed in the story. I think the characters are relatable. I really love Quinn. I really liked her father and all of his bumbliness. Hands down, highly recommended. It's a quick read. It's an easy read. If you're looking for something to just put back and put down during spooky season, just quickly without a ton of effort, it's going to be this. Something like Mayfly, just starting that book this week, I find to be a much more challenging read, requiring a lot more attention. And I think it's going to be rewarding because I do find that book so far to be very interesting. But the density of the prose is a little harder. This is easy to read and easy to finish, and you'll come out of the other side having a good time. And I think that's the most important thing. I also read Incidents Around the House. Wow. I hear a lot of people talking about how that's the scariest book they've ever read, and I hear a lot of people talking about how they didn't find it scary at all. I'm probably closer to the camp of the scariest book I ever read.
Wow.
It maybe not the scariest book I ever read, but I find it to be extremely compelling, and I won't spoil a word of it for you. Bella is a young girl. I believe she's like 8 or 9. She lives with Dado, which I think I'm going to adopt that name. I think I'm going to be Dado when Spooky Baby starts talking. And Mommy. And in her closet lives Other Mommy. And that is just as horrifying in practice as it sounds in the description. Other Mommy's main request of Bella is, can I come into your heart? And yeah, the answer should definitely always be no. When anybody asks you that, don't. That's a weird thing to say. Let's just be honest. And so yeah, Bella struggles with other mommy's a friend. Don't friends help each other? She struggles with other mommy being incredibly terrifying as well as a friend. And she struggles with not telling her parents about this because she wants to protect them from other mommy and also doesn't want to be seen as a problem or crazy or needing help in some way. So it's a really compelling narrative at the outset. If you have kids, you'll be just as afraid for Bella. If you were a kid, I hope all of you were kids, you'll remember honestly, you'll remember what it was like to be afraid of the shadows in your room. It is really well written. And it really captures that sense of uncertainty of childhood and not necessarily understanding the full context of the things that are happening around you and not wanting to disappoint the adults in your life. So you have two distinct types of horror. The horror that you feel on behalf of Bella and the horror that you feel along with Bella. And yeah. And justice for Dado. Dado is a good guy. Yeah. And I mean that in so many different ways. Lastly, I read Womb. WOOM, Womb. It is an extreme horror book that I don't know would be responsible of me to recommend to you. I don't know if that's a responsible thing to do. If you like extreme horror, seek out Womb. If you're uncomfortable with sexual situations, do not seek out Womb. If you like extremely graphic sequences described with modern day prose in full detail with a casual tone, go ahead and check out Womb. It has some of the most disgusting sequences I have ever read in my life. And I don't even know, I liked the book, but I don't know that I enjoyed a minute of my reading of it. It was that extreme. The ending was outlandish and very, very interesting. I think it played well. I think they earned the ending. I think it plays with some interesting themes. And in some cases, I feel like it was extreme for extreme's sake. But that's what this book is designed to be, is extreme horror. It is designed to be extreme. The sequel to the book is called Gross Out.
Okay.
All taking place in this motel chain. Angel calls a prostitute to the room 6 in this hotel. You find out early on that's the room his mother died in. And he has called many girls from this agency, the escort agency, to join him in room 6 for an evening of fun.
Nope.
Yeah. It is extremely intense. I will say it's one of the most intense things I have ever read.
Oh, goodness. Well, I think I will be skipping that one.
I would recommend for you personally that you do. If you like extreme horror, though, this is, I mean, like if you're looking for that fix of extreme horror, this is going to scratch that itch, and I would definitely check it out if that's your thing.
Let's just talk briefly, because we've been on here for a little while.
A good while, yeah.
Let's go ahead and just talk about some quick movies that are coming out. The Substance is coming out this weekend. Very excited about that. If you have not seen our short about The Substance, definitely check that out.
Fangoria sent out a cool collector's edition magazine that covers an interview with the director, an essay about the film, and a cool augmented reality phone number that you can call to get a little bit more context about the world that the film takes place in. Check out the short. I give you the phone number in there. Bagman
is also coming out this weekend. And that looks like a family generational trauma type movie. Never Let Go, starring Halle Berry, is coming out next weekend.
This film's getting some good buzz already. I'm interested to see Halle Berry's return to horror.
Yeah, I saw somebody say that this may be the best horror movie of the year, which is a very tall order.
We've had a good year.
We've had a fantastic year. As Real is also coming out. That is starring Samara Weaving.
I heard excellent things about this film so far.
Have you?
Yes, I have.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
I will see anything Samara Weaving is in. She has earned the right to be called a Scream Queen as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. She's one of the best in the biz.
100%.
And then Apartment 7A is coming out on Paramount Plus next weekend as well.
I love Rosemary's Baby, and I don't want to get into all the talk about Roman Polanski. We say the same thing every time we talk about Apartment 7A, but honestly, I'm so excited to go back into that world and
Yeah.
revisit that cult. Man, the ending of that film is completely unexpected and almost takes your breath away the first time you see it. Rosemary's Baby is a classic.
It
and
is.
I'm way too excited for Apartment 7A. We're going to have to subscribe to Paramount Plus.
I know.
Yeah.
Uzumaki is coming to Adult Swim and Max. So that is our horror anime series.
Very excited to start Tomie by Junji Ito, which Junji Ito also wrote Uzumaki, which this series is based on. Having a good year for him as well. I am excited to dive into it. I can't wait. I have not read the manga that this is based on, but the premise sounds very interesting to me.
Yeah. Hold Your Breath is coming to Hulu. This is a young mother haunted by the past. Sarah Paulson is in it.
Sarah Paulson does fine work. What a fine actor.
Yes, absolutely. House of Spoils is coming directly to Prime on the 3rd as well. That is starring Ariana DeBose.
Oh, nice.
So I'm very interested in that film. Salem's Lot is coming out on Max on the 3rd. Finally.
I didn't think it was ever going to come out.
I'm still not 100% sure it's actually going to come out on the 3rd.
I'm worried about this film because it's been delayed so long. I wonder if it was like Batgirl kind of unreleasable.
Yeah.
And they're just going to recoup what they can on Max. But I have high hopes, if that counts for anything.
Gonna give it a watch.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And then on the 4th, we have a lot of movies coming out as well.
Sure do.
A Different Man, starring Sebastian Stan. This looks like such a cool movie.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's necessarily horror, but I do think it's horror adjacent.
Yeah.
I think it's a thriller more than a horror movie, but I'm very interested in what that movie is all about.
I loved him in The Devil All the Time.
Oh, he was so good in that movie.
I'll definitely check this out.
VHS Beyond, we already talked about on October 4th. Direct to Shudder.
Mike Flanagan, Kate Siegel, the horror power couple.
The horror power couple. It's What's Inside is coming to Netflix. So this is starring Alicia Debnam Carey, who was in
Fear the Walking Dead. She's fantastic as well. Like a strong performer.
Yeah. And then obviously we have Terrifier 3. If you didn't know this movie was coming out, what rock are you living under?
I cannot believe it's almost here. Like, in some way, after Terrifier 2 was over, I thought they're never going to get it made. It's never going to come out. And of course, I don't know why I thought that. Like, it's just that gut feeling, like when you love something so much, you're worried you're not going to get more of it. And I'm so excited for this film. I mean, I know that I knew it was coming out, but like, I can't believe it's almost here.
I know. It's less than a month away. That's why it's on this list. And then the last thing, on October 18th, Smile 2 is coming out.
I hear such good things about Smile. I am just so sick of seeing the Smile 2 trailer.
It's kind of like Speak No Evil.
Yeah, I was so glad when Speak No Evil came out so I could stop seeing that trailer at every film we went to.
Or Afraid.
Or Afraid as well. I was definitely afraid to see that trailer again. But no, Smile 2 looks interesting. I don't think we've ever seen someone who is so publicly accessible, like a famous pop musician, be the victim in what amounts to a slasher film.
Yeah, I think the premise is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
So I think we have to give Smile a chance.
Yeah.
See that first, so that when we go and see Smile 2, we actually know what's happening.
Smile looks fantastic. And
it does.
I can't believe we haven't seen it yet. I heard such good things. They had such an interesting marketing campaign for that film.
I know.
So yeah, no, it's something that we will absolutely watch. We may not get their opening weekend, so I don't know that I would expect a review.
Yeah, there's a
Smile
lot
2.
coming out, and we're going to try our best to see what we can, cover what we can.
I would bank on a Terrifier 3 review out of us.
Terrifier 3 for sure. Some of the stuff that's coming straight to streaming, we may be able to get some of that out. I'm sure we're going to cover VHS Beyond.
Yeah.
For instance, because that's coming straight to Shudder. And a couple of the other ones that are coming straight to VOD will be a little bit easier for us to navigate.
Yeah. Some channel news, a couple of short reviews coming up. We probably have Clown in a Cornfield. A lot of the stuff we just talked about, Clown in a Cornfield, Incidents Around the House. We'll be talking about Hush. We'll be talking about, we might even cover the cool A24 quarterly magazine that Ty West wrote about the Satanic Panic. So we have a cool number of shorts coming out in the next week or so. We're going to have a long-form video hopefully coming out next week as well. where we talk about our horror hot takes. So if you want to see our unpopular horror opinions, give it a couple days. It'll be in your subscriptions folder. Which reminds me, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that. Give us a like here on any of the videos you happen to watch. It really does help us out. It makes a big impact on a small channel. And yeah, until next time.
Stay spooky, my friends.